Look at this beautiful lettuce.
Yes, it's perfect.
This is amazing, a giant cabbage. Oh, look at how big it is.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today's story follows Huyen and Dae, a hardworking couple who finally see their dreams take shape through their first successful harvest. From nurturing green fields with patience and sweat, to selling their produce at the market and earning enough to repair their home, care for their daughter Maya, and secure her education, this is a story about honest labor and quiet triumph. More than money, the harvest gives them peace, stability, and a deep appreciation for a simple life rooted in love and perseverance. If you enjoy heartfelt stories about family, resilience, and rural life, don't forget to like the video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel for more meaningful stories like this. Huyen and Dae began their first harvest with a mixture of excitement, nervous anticipation, and quiet pride that words could hardly capture. At dawn, when the morning mist still clung softly to the fields, they stepped onto their farm and looked out over rows of vegetables glowing with a deep, healthy green. Every leaf, every stem carried the memory of countless early mornings, aching backs, and hands roughened by soil. These were not just crops, they were the result of patience, faith, and months of silent endurance. As Dae bent down to cut the first bundle of vegetables, the sound of the blade slicing through crisp stems felt almost ceremonial, marking the moment when their hard work finally turned into something tangible. Huyen moved carefully between the rows, gathering the vegetables and tying them neatly, her hands steady despite the rush of emotions in her chest. She remembered the days when the land looked bare and unforgiving, when storms threatened to wash everything away and doubts crept in during sleepless nights. Back then, the future had felt uncertain, almost fragile. Now, standing in the middle of the thriving fields, she felt a deep sense of gratitude for the soil, for the weather that had been kind, and for the partner beside her who had never given up, even when things were hardest. As the sun slowly rose higher, the farm came alive with movement. Baskets filled one by one, and the fresh scent of vegetables blended with the smell of damp earth. Their clothes were soon damp with sweat, but neither of them complained. Each drop felt earned, almost precious. When they loaded the harvest onto their small truck, Huyen and Dae paused for a brief moment, exchanging a look filled with understanding. They did not need to speak. In that shared glance was the realization that this harvest was more than an economic success. It was proof that their choices, sacrifices, and belief in a simple life rooted in honest labor had been worth it. With the engine starting and the produce heading toward the market, hope traveled with it, strong and unmistakably real. When the truck returned from the market later that afternoon, it carried more than empty crates. It brought with it a sense of relief that settled deeply into their bones. The vegetables had sold faster than they had imagined, praised for their freshness and rich color, and the money counted into Dae's hands felt almost unreal. For a long moment, he simply stared at the thick stack of bills, as if afraid they might disappear. Huyen watched him from across the small table, her eyes filling with quiet emotion. This was not sudden wealth born from luck, but income earned honestly, leaf by leaf, day by day, from the soil they had trusted. That evening, they sat together and planned carefully, as they always did. Every amount had a purpose, every decision carried weight. The first thought was the house. For years, cracked walls and a leaking roof had been constant reminders of how fragile their life once was. Now, with steady hands and lighter hearts, they discussed repairs, stronger beams, a roof that would not drip during the rainy season, windows that could finally be closed against cold winds. The idea of a safer, warmer home felt like a quiet victory they had waited a long time to claim. Their next thoughts turned naturally to Maya. Huyen's voice softened as she spoke about milk, books, and school fees, things that once caused her silent anxiety. This time, there was no hesitation, no painful calculation. They could buy the best milk for her growing body and pay her tuition on time, allowing her to walk into school with confidence rather than worry. In that moment, the money transformed into something far more meaningful. It became nourishment, education, and a promise of a better future for their child. As night fell, the weight they had carried for so long finally began to lift. The farm outside lay quiet, but inside their small home, hope took shape in simple, practical ways. The earnings from the harvest did not change who Huyen and Day were, yet it changed how they breathed, how they slept, and how they looked toward tomorrow. For the first time in years, stability no longer felt like a distant dream. It was something they could touch, plan for, and believe in. Later that night, after the plans were made and the numbers carefully folded away, silence returned to the farm. The house rested in a gentle stillness, broken only by the soft sounds of insects outside and Maya's steady breathing from the next room. Huyen stepped out into the cool air, and Day followed her, drawn by the same unspoken need to breathe freely after so much emotion. The moon hung low above the fields, casting a pale silver light over the land that had given them so much. The rows, now partly empty after the harvest, no longer looked bare or sad. Instead, they felt peaceful, like land resting after honest labor. They stood side by side at the edge of the field, letting the quiet settle into their hearts. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Words felt unnecessary, even fragile compared to the depth of what they were feeling. Day reached for Huyen's hand, and she held on tightly, as if grounding herself in the reality of the moment. All the exhaustion of the past months, every doubt, every fear of failure, seemed to slowly dissolve in the night air. What remained was gratitude, calm, and a sense of belonging that neither of them had ever known before. Huyen leaned into Day's shoulder, and he wrapped his arms around her, holding her as they looked out over the quiet farm. They did not dream of expansion, luxury, or recognition. Their wishes were simple: steady seasons, healthy soil, laughter from their child, and mornings that began with purpose rather than worry. In that embrace, they understood that happiness did not arrive in loud celebrations or dramatic changes, but in moments like this, shared, ordinary, and deeply real. As the days followed the harvest, life on the farm gradually settled into a new and gentler rhythm, one shaped not by anxiety, but by quiet confidence. Morning routines remained the same: early sun, familiar paths through the fields, but something within Huyen and Day had changed. They no longer worked with the tight urgency of people afraid of losing everything. Instead, there was a calm steadiness in their movements, a trust that their efforts would continue to bear fruit. Each new task, whether repairing a fence or preparing the soil for the next planting, felt purposeful rather than desperate. The house, slowly being repaired piece by piece, became a symbol of this transition. The sound of hammers and saws echoed softly through the afternoons, blending with the calls of birds and the rustle of leaves. Cracks in the walls disappeared, and the roof no longer threatened to leak at the first sign of rain. Huyen often paused in the doorway, watching sunlight fall across the newly fixed floor, imagining winters that would now be warmer and nights that would feel safer. It was not a grand house, but it was theirs, strengthened by the same patience that had grown the vegetables outside. Maya, too, seemed to sense the change. She laughed more freely, her eyes bright as she drank her milk in the mornings and talked excitedly about school. Her small joys filled the home with a kind of energy that money alone could never buy. Watching her, they felt a quiet determination settle in his chest. The harvest had opened a door, but it was their responsibility to keep walking forward season after season for her sake. In the evenings, Huyen and they often returned to the fields, not to work, but simply to walk. The soil beneath their feet felt familiar and forgiving. They talked about future crops, about resting the land, about keeping life simple and honest. There were no grand promises, only shared understanding. The harvest had proven that a modest dream, when nurtured with love and persistence, could grow into something real. And as the stars emerged above the quiet farm, they knew this steady, grounded life, built slowly, carefully, together, was exactly the future they wanted to protect.
Hello, xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Live Single RV. Vậy là trong câu chuyện của chúng ta ngày hôm nay thì dưới sự chăm sóc khéo léo và tài tình cùng với sự tận tâm của Huyền và Đệ thì vườn rau tại nông trại của Huyền đã được đến mùa thu hoạch. Vụ thu hoạch này của Huyền thì đã mang lại một sản lượng rất là lớn cùng với những loại củ quả có kích thước tăng rất là đột biến giúp cho cô có thể bán được số tiền rất là lớn để trang trải cuộc sống cũng như là để làm vốn gây dựng lại nông trại. Trong quá trình trồng rau thì Huyền đã có nghiên cứu những công thức và những loại giống mang lại năng suất cao. Với sự cộng với sự góp sức của Đệ thì vụ mùa này là một vụ mùa bội thu. Huyền và Đệ hy vọng sau vụ mùa này thì cả hai sẽ có thể nhân giống và có thể mà mở rộng từ nông trại của Huyền rộng hơn nữa. Mọi tình tiết hấp dẫn về cuộc sống của Huyền, Đệ cũng như bé Aya tại nông trại hạnh phúc sẽ được kể ở các video tiếp theo. Các bạn hãy bấm vào nút subscribe để đăng ký kênh sẽ nhận được thông báo mới nhất về câu chuyện sẽ được phát sóng hàng ngày trên kênh Live Single RV nha. Đặc biệt đừng quên bấm like, share và để lại comment ở dưới video nhé. Mọi comment đóng góp của các bạn sẽ là động lực giúp mình hoàn thiện hơn về nội dung các câu chuyện tiếp theo. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều. Thanks for the watching. Bye bye and see you soon tomorrow. Bye bye everyone. Have a good day everyone.